Welcome.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pete's Photo Jam. I'm Pete DeMarco, and we have four very special guests today: Shivam Pandey, Alli Harper, and Matt Brandon. Say hello, everybody.
Hey, guys.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys?
We have three amazing photographers here today who are going to share their work with you. Alli is going to share her talk, Minimal, an Architectural Tour by Alli Harper. Shivam Pandey is going to introduce us to Kolkata Through the Lens. And Matt Brandon will talk about the face of culture, his journey as a cultural photographer. So we have three really amazing talks here today. Do you guys just want to say a quick hello? Alli, why don't we start with you since you're kind of starting first?
Well, I'm just really excited to be here. I'm in the presence of two great photographers. It's fantastic that everyone's jumped online this morning, and this is a great concept. We're just going to fly through and see how it goes. I just got a message to say my internet's unstable, but I'm sure we're going to be fine.
All right,
I get that all the time.
And then Shivam, you're in India right now. You're in rural India. I know you mentioned that your connection might not be that stable.
Right.
So, because I think you're broadcasting or you're using your phone. But so hopefully everything will work out. And if not, we'll just go on through it. Why don't you tell us where in India you are, Shivam?
Hi everybody. I'm Shivam and I'm from Kolkata. But right now I'm living in my village, which is in Varanasi. So I'm completely living in rural area because of the coronavirus. And in India, in villages, we are not expecting any sort of infection here. So I'm completely safe and grateful. And thank you, Pete, for giving me this opportunity to talk about my photography and to tell people about my city, because I love my cities.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, we're glad you could make it. We know it's early there in India. So. And then last but not least, we have Matt Brandon. Matt, why don't you say hello?
Hello. Thank you for having me, Pete. And I'm excited to be a part of this and been working hard at something that you'd think would be really easy. 20 slides, 20 seconds, whip it out. But found this to be extremely difficult but it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. And I've been trying to explain this to people, and I've said it's sort of like Toastmasters, where, somebody had asked me, well, why would you just do 20 seconds? Why don't you talk longer? And it's like, well, it's the whole idea of it's just a game in a sense. It's fun. It's just challenging. And, we have to challenge ourselves these days. So anyway, it's going to be fun. I've seen the shows of Alli and Shivam, and they are fantastic. So people are in for a really, really good time today.
Let's just jump right in. We are going to get started with our first photographer, Alli Harper from Australia. And Alli is going to talk about Minimal, an architectural tour. Are you ready, Alli?
I sure am. Thanks, Pete.
All right. No problem. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so this is my country. I put these here. We live in Australia. Most of our population is clustered around the coastal areas. So one of the things I'm really interested in is people's environments and how their buildings and their surrounds affect the way that they live. And we are getting to a more dense environment. I used to think of myself as a portrait photographer. This is a series I did on, my sisters are identical twins. So this was the first book that I made. But when I made this, I was just doing some prints at school when I was studying, and people said, goodness, what's this other work? And I said, oh no, that's just my buildings. And that's where it took off. So this is the Serpentine in London. Every year they invite famous architects to do a building. It's temporary. And this is the big group, 2016, just the most gorgeous structure, hollow fiberglass bricks, and it was meant to look like an unzipped building. Now we're in Berlin. I lived there when I was young, when the wall was still up. This is a publishing house that was built on the wall just near Checkpoint Charlie thought to signal freedom to those on the other side of the wall in East Germany, and it's built in the modernist style. Still in Berlin, amazing, the Parliamentary Library. Sometimes architectural photography, I do like to introduce a human element, and this is a little bit like street photography. You just have to wait for that sort of decisive moment when something comes into your frame. But the good thing about Berlin being destroyed was all the great new architecture. Now we're in Boston, and this segue is because the architect who designed this building actually started the Bauhaus movement in Germany, but he had to flee the Nazis in 1933. And this is a very modernist building, actually, too. Still in Boston, in the same plaza, this was voted the ugliest building in the world. It's the City Hall, described as an upside-down wedding cake. But at the time, the American Institute of Architects awarded it, and it was thought to be quite wonderful. I loved it to photograph, but it's divisive. This is downtown Los Angeles, just the most amazing area. All of these Art Deco cinemas, everything's in really bad repair. Super scary wandering around early in the morning taking images. And then there's just this massive contrast when you look up and you head towards downtown where there's just these gleaming buildings. Oh, I love this building. This cost $3 million to build. That doesn't sound right, but what makes it so interesting is this articulated glass front is to minimise the effect of the sunlight on the building. So there's opaque and transparent glass. It's environmental. Singapore, closer to home for a lot of you. I love the sort of folly of this building. So this was the Singtel Building. It was thought to look like the receiver of a telephone. I don't know about that. But in my work, I started being less purist, and I started really working on my buildings and actively seeking out unusual buildings. So this is the Russian Embassy in Havana, Cuba, and it's described as being a sword in the ground or a syringe, but I think it looks like a robot. But it's a classic example of how sometimes you just don't quite get the shot that you want. I was on a double-decker bus, but I've included it because it was fun. Back in Singapore, I have started more and more sort of researching where I think that there are interesting buildings before I go to places. And again, another example of where I have allowed myself to sort of work on the images and not represent them purely as you might see them in the flesh. This is Renzo Piano, wonderful architect. This is the Whitney Art Gallery in New York. And Renzo Piano said that he wanted to create areas with light and music and places to mingle. And I love the fact that you can just see the two people in the lookout there. This is close to home, my home city of Melbourne, the Manchester Unity Building, which was built in the Depression of 1933 to give people work, and then was taken over by the Australian Army during the war. So I think it's always a challenge. It's fun travelling, but you'll see from Shivam's beautiful work that it's important to take things near where you live. Houston. This was a series that I did purposefully as a triptych. So the building on the right is a gorgeous bit of architecture by Philip Johnson, who's really Houston's darling. There's a lot of his work there, and it's the Chapel of St Basil's, and that's a curtain to invite worshippers in. Houston was fascinating to me. This is downtown on a rainy day, not a soul. What's going on? And I didn't realise that Houston has 6 metres below the ground. There's, 10 Ks of tunnels that you can walk around. So I just love that. Now we've moved to Japan. You'd think that as a photographer in Japan, I'd probably be taking beautiful landscapes, but this is sort of shows as I just can't help myself. If there's a building there, I'll find it and I want to photograph it. So this was a shop of some description, possibly abandoned or closed for the winter. Furano is the most beautiful area. It's in Hokkaido, which is sometimes sort of described as the belly button of Japan. It's one of Japan's coldest areas. And in the summer, it's full of market gardens and things like that. So sorry, that's my phone ringing. Presenter number 1, mistake. Yeah, so this is a schoolyard. So I went to the schoolyard and I was just wandering around, remembering the key rule of, don't put big footprints where you're about to photograph. And what I didn't think about was the snow was so deep that at one stage I just ended up going sort of splat and picked myself up. And what I didn't realise was this school actually had students in it. And so it was quite funny. I thought it was probably to their great amusement that they saw this photographer wandering around and falling over in the snow. But I really do love architecture. It's something that I'm always interested in around the world and, how it informs the way that we live.
All right, let's give a big round of applause for Alli Harper. Good job, Alli. Awesome. If you are in the chat, you can type a comment in the chat. If you have a question for Alli about her work or any of the photos, you can type it in the Q&A. And as I said, there will be a Q&A session after our next two presenters. We'll have time to talk to them and ask them questions. But if you have a question off the top of your head now and you don't want to forget it, you can type it into the Q&A and we'll get to it after. So thank you very much, Alli. Awesome job. Next up, we have Shivam Pandey, Kolkata Through the Lens. Are you there, Shivam?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, when you talk about Kolkata, you always start with Howrah Bridge, Flower Market, yellow taxis, and handful rickshaws. This bridge is one of the most liveliest bridges in the world, making like 100 to 150,000 people crossing it every single day. It's a record in itself. While I'm always around to this bridge, I want to make connection between human and this bridge. So when I photograph the people around it, I'm always looking for some action, like they're taking water from it, washing, praying, and everything. And I like to connect that moment and take a picture, which makes this bridge also in a live form. So next up is Flower Market of Kolkata. This place starts at 3 a.m. like super early morning, and people are working from 3 a.m. till 8 or 9 a.m. and then they need to take rest at 9 so that they can start their morning again. And so this guy is sleeping in his basket because he don't have to go somewhere else to take some rest, because then he will have to come back again to the market and work. So wherever they can find rest, they will take rest. This is one of the most best places to take photos and to take street photographs in Kolkata. The Faces of Kolkata. During my initial days of photography, I used to carry 85mm lens, and I was so much into taking pictures of people's face. So portrait photography was super important for me. And what makes it, I wanted to show people how beautiful they are just by showing their picture. And the lady in the right-hand corner is someone who works in a plastic recycling factory. But I tried to make her photo so beautiful that she can see and realize that she is really beautiful. And that's what the impact I wanted to create with the Faces of Kolkata. The streets of Kolkata. After traveling 10 to 15 cities in India, I realized that street photography and documentary photography in Kolkata is subliminal. There is no comparison between Kolkata and anywhere else. I can see so much of rush at one moment, and then I can see so much of calmness in the other moment, like this guy reading a newspaper in the early morning and the dog sitting just beside him, which makes a really great picture for me, because in a city with more than 20 million people, this picture holds a special place for me, because this is such a calm picture and I can create it anytime in Kolkata. This is the beauty of Kolkata. Handful rickshaws. One of the most favorite attraction of people is handful rickshaws. While they come to Kolkata, they will always think of taking pictures of yellow taxis and handful rickshaws, because that's the only place. Kolkata is the only place where we can see handful rickshaws. And while I observe them, I'm always looking for a moment where they are relaxing so that I can take pictures, because I don't want to disturb them while they are running around from here to there in the city. So this picture is perfect because all the people are running and the only handful rickshaw guy is taking rest, which is very important for me. The Ganges and the kids. the river Ganges starts from Himalayas and ends up in Bay of Bengal. But when it comes to Kolkata, its name changes from Ganges to Hooghly. And I'm always fascinated by the lives around this river. So, but these kids, they have a different sort of relation with that river. They are always jumping into it, and they are always swimming into it, picking up points from it. And it's like a playground for them. They don't usually go to school, but they are always practicing their skill of swimming into the river, into this river. This photograph I took just by going down. This kid was jumping into the river, but I made it him jump into the sky. Minimalism in the Madan Park. So in the middle of Kolkata, there is a big Madan Park where like around 5,000 people are playing every single day cricket and soccer. But when you go there and you can't see a picture because of so many people, it's too much of distraction for me. But during winters, this place gets super misty, and I can create all the minimal images. I can create all the images with the people walking and doing exercise and all the stuff. And this is really great. This is a style that I always wanted to achieve in photography, and in Kolkata, I can do it. I'm really grateful for my city. Lives around railway. If we circle down Kolkata, there is a circular railway tracks which connects one place to other place. But what's more important about these railway tracks is people living around these tracks. And what I found out while photographing them is these people are super hardworking, and they have they are super happy also, and they value all the relations that they have with their family, with their kids, and everything. They live their life with all the dignity, and this guy is sitting into the railway box, and there is no one. So I always like to photograph calmness in my city. The open laundry of Kolkata. Yes, all the budget hotels of Kolkata gets their laundry done just around this place. This place is not so big, but this provides a livelihood for families over 100. So what happens due to urbanization in Kolkata? People are just trying to make them go away from their place. You can see the new building, and you can see the pond here. So the new constructions, they want to get them out of that place so that they can build new buildings. But they don't realize that this is super important for all those families making livelihood with the laundry place. Not last but not the least, wrestlers of Kolkata. These are the people who are carrying the Indian tradition, who are carrying the ancient tradition of wrestling in India, and they are so much less in India right now. So I always go to them and photograph them. This is the guy on the left-hand side is wrestling into the mud, and the guy right-hand side is a guy, I took a portrait of him, and then he's carrying the weightlifting stuff, so which is really great. And yes, this is my presentation about Kolkata, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it.
All right, let's give a big round of applause for Shivam. Excellent job, Shivam. And the internet worked the whole time, so perfect.
Oh man, thank you. I hope they liked it.
Yeah, there's a lot of great comments in the chat. You can check those out.
Do you have it?
Yep.
All right.
Rock and roll.
Whew. Okay, here goes. I want to talk about my journey to discover what it takes to photograph culture through the faces of its people. Gandhi said, a nation's culture resides in the hearts and the soul of its people. It's not easy to photograph something as esoteric as people's hearts and soul. In fact, it's quite complicated. Most people understand that we can photograph the concrete in an abstract way. It's done every day, like this man riding his scooter in the streets of Penang. But it's my job to take the abstract concept of culture and to turn it into something as concrete as a photograph. Again, not always easy. I came to understand that culture expresses itself in tangible ways through people. People express culture through dress, like this eagle hunter from Mongolia. You can see how his clothing is distinct, adapted to the climate and location where he lives, from the fur hat and the coat to the embroidered bag on his hip. This is a woman I photographed at a mosque in Kalimantan, Borneo. Here we see that her dress gives us cultural clues to her faith. But it's more than just the style or type of clothing. It's also about how someone wears it. Like this lady is completely covered, right? So this is a clue that she's a Muslim, and she is. Or how about this man? His clothing and ash marks give us clues that he is a Hindu. With just a little more research, you can tell that he's a Brahmin and maybe even a priest. But this photo doesn't give any context or clue as to where the photo was taken. And actually, it was taken right here in Penang, Malaysia. Culture is also expressed through religion. People often come to religion for power over their circumstances. Here we see a woman in the Philippines touching the feet of Jesus in a painting. She believes that the painting holds actual blessing. Sociologists call this a power object. And so she touches it for that blessing. There are also power people in religions. In Hinduism, this sadhu would be an example of a power person and believed to have mystical powers by many people. I took this photo in Varanasi, India on the Ganges. By the way, Varanasi and the Ganges are also known as power places in sociological terms. Culture is expressed in special times called, you guessed it, power times, such as in the morning and evening puja in Hinduism. Here, a Malaysian Hindu man seeks a blessing from a Hindu priest. You might say this is an example of power person, power place, and power time. Festivals are a tangible expression of culture. We see it in Christmas lights, fireworks on the New Year's Eve, or, as in this photo, the throwing of colored powder during Holi. Now, to be fair, I actually took this photo during a film shoot on a movie set in Penang, but it does represent Holi. A festival that I try to photograph every year in my home is Hungry Ghost. It's a Taoist festival that celebrates the release of spirits from hell for a few weeks. Every day there are Chinese operas and elaborate puppet shows to photograph. It's really a photographer's smorgasbord in many ways. So much to photograph. Art can also communicate deep meaning, and it is significant in expressing culture. Stories and traditions are kept alive in art. Here, a man in Kolkata, India, meticulously sculpts the bust of Rabindranath Tagore. He was a Bengali poet, writer, music composer, painter, and considered a national hero in India. As I've traveled the world, I've watched events like Thaipusam in Malaysia, seen here, and I have found it difficult not to pass judgment saying this is wrong or this is weird. But over the years, I've tried to cultivate an attitude of non-judging, to observe and to learn and to ask why these practices are happening. I may not agree with these Ethiopians' use of scarification. They see this as beautiful. I may find it unattractive or even offensive, but I need to be careful. My judgment could very easily influence how I portray these people. My desire is to show the pride and dignity that they see in themselves. I photographed this man saying salam while in Cairo, Egypt. I feel it embodies respect. One of the biggest things that I try to do when photographing people is to respect them. I may disagree with their politics, their practices, or their beliefs, but I still feel I need to respect them as human beings. By being respectful, you risk losing the shot, or at least the best shot. Look closely here, and you can see the photographer off to the right in the shadows. And when I photograph in a place of worship, I try to be respectful by being quiet and unobtrusive. I try to shoot from one position and not become a distraction. Sometimes you're rewarded for your respect. I photographed this lady for the Malaysian AIDS Council, and during the interview, she began to weep about her life. So I put my camera down. She insisted that I continue to keep shooting. Sometimes the people you photograph will surprise you, as this lady did for me. This photo of a girl in Sumatra almost wasn't published. I didn't get a model release. After being honest with the client, they paid to have a man track the girl down, get a release signed by her and her parents, and pay her and her family for the use of the photo. Integrity almost cost me this image. As a cultural photographer, it is really important to photograph someone within their context. This puts me into some places where I need to be quiet and respectful of my surroundings. If I'm in a church like this one in the Philippines, I take off my hat. In a mosque or temple, I need to remove my shoes. These are just simple ways to show respect. Speaking of context, one of the most important things that I've learned over the years is don't always shoot tight portraits. pull out and include the context. The environment the person is in is often rich with cultural clues, as in this photo of a tea merchant in Qinghai, China that I shot for the National Geographic. Why are people so important to my photos? Because people make the abstract concept of culture tangible. I see dignity in everyone I photograph, the rich, poor, Buddhist, Muslim, black, white, male or female. In each face, I see a glimpse of the image of God. Thank you.
All right, let's give a hand for Matt Brandon. Yeah, excellent job, Matt.
Thanks.
So, wow, that was some really awesome work. It was a pleasure to see, all of the work that the three of you have produced. It was very inspiring, and I can also tell by the comments in the chat that people are also feeling the same way. So now what I'd like to do is just open up the floor to the people who are joining in for us today, and just give them a chance to ask questions. Like I said, for everyone out there watching us, if you have a question, please type it in the Q&A, not the chat, and we'll jump right in. I'm going to just ask the first question, and then after that, I'm going to pass it over to the audience. The first question I have is, Shivam, how did you meet Matt? Matt actually recommended I invite you. I didn't know you before this. I've known Matt for a long time, but not you. And when we were looking for someone, your name came up right away. So can you just tell us how you know Matt?
I think it was 2017 or 16. Matt was running a tour in Kolkata, and the guy who was fixing the tour for him hired me as his assistant. But when I was looking at Matt working, I was so much impressed by him, like the way he used to take photos, the way he was making connections, and everything. I suddenly fell in love for photography. That was the first time I ever thought that I want to be a photographer. But at that part of time, I don't had a camera. And then Matt paid all the money to his fixer, and his fixer gave me all the money so that I can buy a camera, and I started photography right away. And now I'm his fixer in India.
You're not my fixer. You're my competitor.
No, you're my teacher. You have been always my mentor.
Well, anyway, so yeah, I'm amazed at his image. I mean, you guys have seen it here today. We got several questions about gear and stuff. Do we want us to type these answers in, or do you want us to?
No, so I'll just ask them. Actually, I wanted to start with a question for Alli. Helen asks, how do you get your photos of tall buildings in perfect perspective without distortions in the lines?
Hey, Helen, thanks for your question. I don't have a tilt shift lens, which surprises people. That's commonly used by architectural photographers, but because I travel a lot, I like to keep it simple. So I'll often just be using a 24-70, and I do it all in post. So the most important thing to remember where you can is to try and keep your camera on the same angle as whatever you're shooting, because the minute you're looking up, you're going to get that tombstoning. And so I find I can do a lot in Lightroom, actually, just with my vertical corrections. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky. That picture of the Whitney Museum with the couple who was standing on the observation deck, their heads the building looked great and their heads sort of turned into, wooden spoons. So I had to fix that. But it's something that just comes with practice, how you set up the shot to begin with, and then just practice in post.
One quick follow-up question from Sandra, and she's in Houston. She's in Texas. She asks, what was the name of the architect you mentioned in Houston?
Johnson. So Philip Johnson, he's got a really famous, if anyone's ever in Connecticut, I know we feel like we'll never travel again. His most famous work, if you want to look it up, is the Glass House. And it's just a beautiful square house. So his style really evolved as he went on. But I don't know if there's a way I can contact you afterwards, but if you look him up, he's got a lot of really seminal work. A lot of it's in Houston.
Excellent. You had mentioned about your gear. I'm that's a good segue into our next question. Dennis asks, can each of you briefly talk about the gear? What's your kind of main go-to camera body and lenses? Shivam, let's start with you.
Yeah, Shivam, you're muted. Shivam, you're muted. Yeah, tell them what camera you use, dude.
I'm using currently Leica Q, and that's the that's the only camera that I use most of the time. I have a Nikon DF with an 85 lens, which I use for my portraits and for my other work. But mostly, I'm using Leica Q all the time.
Matt, how about you?
I love this guy. Me? I use this guy. I use a let me take that off. I use a GFX. It's a medium format Fuji camera, and it's 50 megapixels. It's got amazing dynamic range, and the 110's got some beautiful bokeh separation that you wouldn't believe. So, and then I use lights a lot. I use a lot of off-camera lighting. So, and Shivam can attest to that.
Now, if you have a chance to choose natural light, you will choose natural light all the time.
Matt, what's your main go-to off-camera, your flash unit? Or I know you travel with one. Do you have one specific one that you would recommend to people that you like to travel with?
Well, it all depends. Honestly, it depends on how they want to travel. I don't travel light. I used to a long time ago, but now, and if I'm going on vacation or something, I travel light. But if I'm leading a workshop, which I do lead photo workshops, by the way, if anybody's interested, maybe someday we'll lead them again. And then, but if I'm on assignment with I shot for Nat Geo up in China, a couple other places. I always take gear like crazy, more gear than I do clothing. And so I'll have a Godox set, a flash, and this Godox trigger, so that I can do off-camera lighting. I don't ever put light on my camera unless I'm specifically trying to get an effect of rear curtain sync. So I'll use 8200, 8400, and 8600 Godox flashes. So that's it.
Alli, how about you? What camera and lens is your kind of go-to set?
I'm a Canon shooter. I've got a 5D Mark III. I usually, as I said, just use the 24-70, but I've got the 70-200. I've got the 50. I just sort of got that, kit of, I try and use, just when I'm traveling, I just use that one. And I've also got a little Olympus OMD AM5. And actually, I'm the opposite to Matt, because I used to take all the gear and luff it around, and then I had a bad experience where a lot of stuff went missing in Cuba. It's another story. So I found during lockdown, I've just been using my little camera, just very simple, very sort of private, COVID kind of work, and just loving keeping it really simple. I'm not really a techie person, funnily enough.
All right. Jane asks, actually, we just kind of answered that. Matt, do you want to talk about, let's talk about lenses. I don't think we really mentioned that.
Background as well.
Yeah, we'll do that one next.
Oh, okay. All right. Lenses.
The lenses, if you could only, what lens do you use most? Could you name one or two lenses that are kind of your go-to lens that you use? Shivam, let's start with you, then Matt and Alli.
Okay. So I'm always using, because I use Leica Q, so it's a full frame camera with a 28 lens. So I never change my lenses. And someone just asked that, is it good to have a point and shoot camera for street photography? I think most of the best street photographers are using point and shoot cameras like Fuji X100, F, V, whatever like they have right now. So I'm using 28 all the time. that's my go-to lens.
Matt, how about you?
I use the, well, I like to shoot wide. I don't know if you wouldn't think that by looking at some of these portraits, but I generally shoot wide. Like I said, I like to get the context in. So I shoot, on the GFX, I shoot the 32 to 32 to 64. It's an f4 lens. But that, I forget how to do the conversion. It's different on when it's on a full frame. I'm sure somebody out there is much quicker at this kind of stuff than I am. And then when I'm shooting, like Shivam said, the funny thing is last time I was out before COVID, I was actually in Kolkata with Shivam, and I had my GFX on my hip the whole time, and I never used it. I used my X100V, which is a fixed lens. I would not call it a point and shoot, in that kind of makes it sound like it's all automatic or something, because you've got a 2.8 lens, I think it is, and then it's got manual shutter speed, aperture controls, and everything, all on the lens and on the body and everything. So, but it's an amazing lens, and it was so fun to use. In fact, I think I even tempted Shivam at one point away from his Leica for like 2 minutes, but then he went back to his Leica. Anyway.
Thanks, Matt. Alli, how about you?
Yeah, so the 24 to 70 just for versatility. But if I'm taking portraits, you can't beat a long lens. So definitely the 70 to 200, because, it just creates beautiful images for portraits. But it's good to set yourself a challenge. Like sometimes, I've just said, okay, for this week, I'm just going to use my 50, and bad luck. And I'm going to have to let my feet do the zooming and, just sort of play around. So just to introduce that to, challenge yourself a little bit.
Dee asks, when taking your pics, do you try to isolate the people at the time to get the black backgrounds, or do you do more of that work in post? And Shivam, I notice you also do, something similar.
Yeah.
Matt, do you want to answer that? Matt or Shivam? Yeah.
Let Shivam go first.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I'm most of the time when I'm doing portraits, I'm always looking for a window or a gate, and then I put my subject in front of the window or gate, and then I get like that black background, and it's not in the post. I try to get that light before I go into the post production. In post, it's just 10% of work. But if you have like a really good light coming on the window or gate, you can take those sort of black background pictures.
About the light, actually, that's one little follow-up question for you. When Matt was talking about you, he mentioned you have a great eye for the light, and some comments in the chat were amazing light. What's your kind of process for finding the light or making that happen?
I think first of all, I'm grateful to be in India because I have like beautiful light all the time. So, but what I look for is different shape of light, maybe a tunnel or maybe some shop. I try to always get the light from windows or gate, so I'm trying to connect my subject with the light coming from windows or gate. That's my main aim.
Matt, black background, how do you do it?
Can I share my screen for a second?
Yep, go for it.
Yeah. Boom. Okay.
Yeah,
so for this photo, let me get all that stuff out of the way. This was actually taken with a black backdrop in the village underneath a water tower, and we used 2 lights, a key and a kicker light on her shoulders. And so that's why the baby's face is lit so well, and you've got great catch light in her. And the black backdrop gave us a way to isolate her, because we were doing a study on their clothing and everything. It was sort of a study, if you will, a photographic study. This one, oh, it's going to play automatically because this is it. This one was actually shot with one light, and it was on a black backdrop that was the back of a signboard in Varanasi that was just a signboard. So it was just, we took advantage of what was there. And so it worked out real well. Let me get out of that and then go. So this one, I did this in post. It actually is shot in a mosque. And so you could see some carpet and stuff, but it was all pretty distracting. And for this particular, I just made this in one way for this show because I wanted to highlight her clothing. This was shot actually in a temple, but I used this as a project for a book project that I was working on that is yet to be complete. But anyway, and it's also a black backdrop that I set up. However, like Shivam said, a lot of my stuff that I didn't even put in this show, I have black back. It looks like they're shot in a black backdrop, but all they are is doorways. Because if you put someone in reflected light in a doorway, it'll expose them beautifully, and then it'll underexpose everything behind them, and it'll look as if it's shot on a black backdrop. So for that black look, those are ways to do that. Take advantage of what you've got there. Travel with a small black backdrop. You can do it in post if you need to. I rarely do that. I did it on this one because it was easy to do on this one, and it kind of worked with the first few photos that I was doing. But yeah, I think that's it.
Alli, could you talk a little bit about light? I noticed in your photos you have a lot of kind of muted, soft light. It's almost as if you're purposely taking your photos on cloudy days or maybe early. There's no harsh sunlight or shadows in most of your photos. And you also have a kind of almost like desaturated look a little bit with your colors and stuff. I'm just curious to hear a little bit about your process for finding light and, how you like to work when photographing architecture in the outdoors.
Sure. I was really influenced by Ernst and Hilda Becker, who did typologies, and they would wait for a really long time to have the right grey sky. And so for me, a sunny day with blue sky and fluffy clouds is my enemy, and that's what I do not want and I do not shoot in. So I think one of the reasons why that image that I showed you of the fabulous robot embassy in Havana, I never used it because short of putting in a new sky and really playing around with it, it just wasn't the right weather and the right time, and I didn't have a long time in Havana, unfortunately. So yeah, absolutely. Grey sky, perfect. Those photos that I took in Berlin, it must have just been something to do with the time of year. It was just constantly grey. I do spend a lot of time in the rain. You would have noticed the beautiful St. Basil's Chapel shot with the fellow with the umbrella. Like, it was pouring. So, yeah, it's definitely just a case of waiting for the right grey day for me. And what was the other question you asked about the
colors?
Oh, yeah.
The color seems a little desaturated, or maybe you're moving down some particular colors, like not showing some colors more than others. Is that something you're doing in post, or what's kind of is that something you're doing in your editing process, or?
Yeah, I try and sort of give them continuity. I'm just sort of drawn to a particular palette. So I might, in some cases, crank down the blue. You crank something up, not down, but, just reduce the blue a bit just to avoid that really classic picture postcardy kind of look.
Awesome. Next question we have from Vinay. He is asking, I see a lot of awesome pictures highlighting this is more for Matt and Shivam. I see some pictures of individuals in the day and culture. Do you ever take pictures of crowds? I want to know your views on crowd photography. Matt, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. Take pictures of crowd all the time. I was just that this particular was on portraits, but yeah, I mean, I take a lot of pictures of crowds. One Well, let me rephrase it. So I take pictures that tell a story, basically, and that whether that's a portrait or a architecture or whatever. In my mind, really, I'm a frustrated journalist. I'm not a journalist. I don't consider myself a journalist, but I'm sort of like that frustrated journalist. I always wanted to be one, but am not. And so I see myself as a visual storyteller. And so I'm looking for a picture. If it's a crowd, I want it to tell something. I want it to add to the story. I want it to communicate something. If I'm if I'm taking a picture of an individual like the guy doing salam, I feel like that is just emoting all kinds of imagery. The girl with her hands to her face, all these things, to me, they have to tell a story. Crowds are the same way. But I saw that part of what he was asking is, how do you deal with crowds like in India and things like that? And honestly, it can get crazy unless you're doing quick work with the X100 or the Leica Q. That's why those work so well for crowd shots in India. If you're doing some of the stuff like I've done where I've got lights and everything like that, frankly, and I'm just going to be real straight with you, it's best to have a Shivam by your side to help with crowd control and to keep people from crowding into the shot and stuff like that. Because if I'm using lights, I'm creating an image in some ways. If I'm using a light, there's rarely ever a time you could call that journalism in the sense of spontaneous photograph. When I did a thing for Nat Geo Traveler, they particularly hired me because of my work with lights. They wanted portraits. They called them vox pops. They were pullouts of interviews with people on the street, sort of a thing. And they wanted a portrait for each one of those people. So they were set up, but it's still sort of journalism, but it's not that spontaneous thing. So if it's not spontaneous and it's using a big light like that, then you're going to get a crowd. And that's where someone, a fixer or a helper or a friend that will help out a lot, especially if they speak Hindi. You know?
So Shivam, what are your tips then for crowd photography at the Kumbh Mela? Kumbh Mela, what do you call it?
Kumbh Mela, yeah, go ahead.
The Kumbh Mela.
Yeah. I mean, like Matt says, it will be super easy if you have a camera like a Q or X100V, because it's super small and you can carry and you can like take pictures spontaneously. But it's when you are taking pictures of crowd, you really need to know like what you want to photograph. Because when I'm taking a picture of a crowd, I'll put everyone in background and just one guy in foreground doing some movement or something like that. Because it needs to be like, all my pictures, I want to make them clean. You know, that's the style I have been working on. In India, I have like so much of crowd, but what I try to do, it's for me. Questions should be more for how I can isolate my subject from the crowd. So I always try to think about a background, and I'm waiting for there. Like when I was on Matt's workshop, I learned one of the best tricks. It's one of the best things that I've learned in photography is sit and wait challenge. So you find a background and you are just sitting there and waiting for people to move on and doing different activities, and you take pictures. So at that moment you forget about the crowd, what's going on besides you or around you. You don't care. You just care about your background and you're waiting for people to come in. That's how I isolate people from a crowd. I don't really take crowd pictures, so I can't tell anything about that.
All right.
Like
Last question. Yeah. Last question. It's for Matt. Did you use lights to illuminate the subject, the man in Varanasi?
Yes. That would have been almost impossible otherwise, because the sun was behind him, so he would have been backlit. And so, yeah, that was taken actually. Another plug for any workshop I do. That was taken on a workshop, and so. It wasn't just me. I had other people from our group in the boat. We hired the boat, and this guy was willing to take time with us and to go out and to photograph. And of course, we paid him for his time. and so it was a win-win for everybody. So yeah. Somebody wants I think they would like everybody's information from at the end, so that people can follow us, I guess.
I'm going to I'm going to put this up on my YouTube channel, and I will link to everybody's stuff. Do you want to just maybe type in the chat right now?
Yeah.
Your whatever. So for the panelists, if you want to type in your website or Instagram, whatever. But I'm going to put that in the replay. I'm also going to send an email out with the replay with links and everything, so you can find that there. Just to give a quick plug for everyone. Yes, actually, I'll let George Neal, he wrote a comment. I think he wrote it to the panelists, not to the attendees, so they couldn't see it. But he says he was Matt's college roommate, but Matt is an amazing workshop leader, attentive to the details. Yeah. He's been shooting with him since 2014. So there's a plug for Matt's workshop. So when Matt, when we can start traveling again, Matt leads some incredible workshops. You should definitely check him out. Shivam runs Kolkata photo tours. You definitely want to go with Shivam if you're ever in India.
Hey, if I'm doing Kolkata, Shivam's our fixer, so you get two birds with one stone.
So that's definitely a trip you don't want to miss. Alli, do you have anything you'd like to plug or share? Do you have any upcoming exhibitions? I know you had a few exhibitions a while back.
Yeah.
Do you have any? Yeah.
I'm actually a bit of a digression from my architectural work. I've done some collaborations during COVID. So hopefully one I did with a mutual friend of ours, a great photographer who lives in Singapore. That'll hopefully get shown in New York and Sweden, but we're waiting because there's a bit of uncertainty. And I've got a book coming out, a collaboration with another photographer during COVID. But I run private lessons for people who are interested. I used to particularly... took one lady to the Werribee Zoo before she went on safari in Africa. So, yeah, I definitely, I do classes for teenagers and I do individual lessons as well.
Okay. And do you do online classes? I know maybe a lot of people can't travel, but they might want to work with you.
Yeah, if any, I've just given my Instagram handle in the chat, and then that's got a link to my website. So people can contact me via Insta anytime.
All right. And I'll just give a little plug for myself. I forgot to say, my website is thenomadwithin.com, and I also run an online landscape photography school, outdoor photography. It's called the Creative Academy. And if you have any questions about that, you can connect with me as well. So let's give one final big round of applause for everybody, for all of our panelists. Thank you for sharing your time and your work with us and your knowledge. We really appreciate it. And thank you for all of you out there who've signed in. We appreciate the beautiful comments that you've left for our panelists here. You gave us some great questions. And yeah, also, I'm going to keep doing this. I would like to do a couple more Pete photo jams in the future. So yeah, you can look out for those coming up sometime soon. So
thank you.
That's all for today. Good night, good morning, wherever in the world you are. Have a great day, wonderful weekend, and yeah, we'll see you soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Take care, Pete. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.